All weekly Wednesday webinar. And I am Lakshmi Challa. It is February 23rd, and we've got a lot of things to talk about today in terms of news, data related to immigration. Let's give people a few minutes to join, and then we will get started. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. It was beautiful, at least where I was. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was lovely. So I hope you all had a lovely weekend as well. And we're going to be going through, like I said, some data, some strategies today on immigration. You know, how many, as of end of third quarter to fourth quarter last year, how many folks were waiting with an approved I-140 for their priority date to be current? How many 45s have been processed? So we've got all this information that we will share with you shortly, and we look forward to talking with you. Let's see. Let's give it one more second. It's 12:01. I can see people slowly trickling in. We are getting back to the weekly webinars after some absence, so I can understand that. Let me take a picture of us getting started so that we can share it with our Telegram folks and ask them to join. So let me share this with the Telegram group. I hope I can do that. And so let's see how many folks we have, and we will go ahead and get started. It's crazy. Okay, I've got a new phone, and so it's not letting me do that, but I did post, so hopefully they'll be joining us soon. So what are we talking about in terms of data and what's going on? All right, let's look at both the family-based and the employer-based. As I told you, they are intertwined, right? Because family-based numbers impact employment-based numbers and vice versa. So as of September 2021, I-140s that were in the second preference, the total number of I-140s that were waiting for visa availability in EB2, second preference, was 584,000. Then they break it down by country. So rest of the world, there were 3 people waiting. Rest of the world, 3 people waiting. What do you think was the highest number? The number next to that was 23,648 from China. So 295,933 individuals with an I-140 petition are from India, awaiting an available visa number. So this is numbers that, you know, Congress needs to see. Then if you look at third preference, the total number of I-140s awaiting for an available visa number is 68,350. A pretty vast difference. Of that, believe it or not, rest of the world, there are 100 people that are waiting. Philippines, there's 132. In China, it's 6,542. And boom, 61,576,000 for those who were born in India. That's a pretty spectacular differential in the two. And then, of course, in first preference, because I know there's some folks that are eager to find out, there are only 249 I-140s that are waiting for visa availability. Rest of the world, it's 102. Mexico, it is 3. China at 79 and India at 65. So at least in that, India is second to last. That's good news for those who were born in India. Given the other two categories, they've got a huge number of petitions that are waiting. Out of the preference categories, family-based, let's take a look at the vast majority of the rest of the world. Their weight is 83,936 for unmarried sons and daughters. That is unmarried sons and daughters of legal permanent residents who are 21 years or older. Remember, if you're a married son and daughter, you can't sponsor them as a legal permanent resident. You have to become a citizen. So married sons and daughters of US citizens, it is 62,253 all over the world. For India, it's 7,912 for married sons and daughters of US citizens. For unmarried sons and daughters of legal permanent residents, it's 2,038. And for India, and for unmarried sons and daughters of US citizens, for India, it's 636. The rest of the world, for unmarried sons and daughters of US citizens, it's 52,271. That means every other country except for China, Mexico, India, and the Philippines. So the whole combined of the rest of the world is 52,271, with Mexico having the largest weight of 56,275. And then, the total numbers altogether of family-based is 1,295,255,000. Whereas the grand total for employment-based is 438,377,000. So that gives you some perspective as to, who's processing what and where the wait times are. Now let's take a look at the fourth quarter as it relates to processing times and what they've approved. So let's first take a look at the I-140. I-140, this is just in the fourth quarter, they received 48,527. So that's how many they received. That is in the fourth quarter, not of all times. They approved 48,974. They denied 1,896. And 88,970 petitions are pending. And this is, like I said, the fourth quarter. Let's look at the I-765. Oh, my gosh. These are for employment authorization documents. In the fourth quarter, they received 690,175. They approved 546,726. They denied 65,838. And pending, I need a drum roll, 1,482,697. Wow, that is a lot. So let's look at employment-based adjustments. In the fourth quarter, they received 45,897. They approved 86,700. 704. So let's think about that. They denied 2,225. So roughly 89,000 they adjudicated within the fourth quarter. And since that's 3 months, almost 90,000, you're talking about on average 30,000 a month, which is very good. A vast difference between the year before, when we were not looking at numbers anywhere close to that. And pending I-445s is 245,490. The processing time for I-45s on average is 9 months, almost 10 months. This is a joke. On their quarterly report, they're claiming that I-765, the EADs are taking 5 months. We all know that that's not the case. They're taking much longer than that. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And I-140s, they claim are 10 months, but given the numbers I'm looking at for EADs, I'm not totally sure that that is correct. So we will have to see, but they did approve roughly a little over 600,000. So they're processing per month 200,000 EADs. Wow. So this puts everything in perspective. What we do know is that the average processing time for an EAD is anywhere from 8 to 12 months. You can only file an EAD extension 6 months prior to its expiration. So if you file it 6 months prior to its expiration, you then get the automatic 180 days. So you hopefully should be getting your EAD right around the time that your 180-day time frame is getting ready to expire. So that's really important for us to think about in terms of strategy. You've got to make sure your extensions are filed at the earliest date available, which is that 6-month time frame. So it gives you that 6 months plus the 180 days that's allotted for extensions. Excuse me. This is my Green Goddess energy drink, and it's fantastic. So it's giving me the energy to hopefully answer all the questions you all may be having today. Given the long processing times, one of the things that we have been looking at, and this doesn't apply to all countries, but what about consular processing versus filing for an adjustment? There are certain countries, not all countries, where consular processing is much faster. You've got to look at what the processing time is in those countries. You also have to look at the country conditions in terms of, any COVID-related restrictions. It was nice that the World Health Organization reported that there has been a substantial decrease in people impacted by some variant of the COVID, I'm going, of the variant or what have you, so, and there's less deaths associated with the COVID pandemic as well. So that is good news. And what does that mean for you? That means hopefully we'll have the consulates operating full time. The other thing we're dealing with in all these processing time issues is not just related to the restrictions pursuant to the pandemic, but they're also related to finding enough personnel. I think that's what has impacted many state agencies in terms of their processing times. So we'll have to see how they adapt. But if you've been following me on YouTube, on these weekly webinars, you will know that we reported last year how slow the processing times were and how it's been great that I think we saw a big jump in kind of the third quarter of last year. And at least the fourth quarter shows that they've done a tremendous increase in terms of speeding up their processing time. So it does seem like they are trying to streamline processes and improve things. They still haven't gotten where they could be, where they should be, but it is some progress. Before we get into the Q&A, I wanted to tell you all about various platforms, and I think my team will upload all the links in the chat or the Q&A. But this is our Telegram group where we connect with people. And I have been away. I've been traveling quite a bit for the past several months, but hopefully my travel, at least within the next 30 days, is going to be very limited. So I'll be able to be more engaged with that group. But join that group, not only just because of our input, but it's one of the few where you get answers without having to pay for it. I should know, because I was kicked off several for trying to give free advice. But I think it's important that you do get free advice, because there's so many confusing elements in the internet that may not be true. So that's why we created this this forum on Telegram called Clarity for Hum. And hum in Hindi means us. This is a forum for all of us that we can be engaged, and that you can also engage with each other and talk to people with experiences that they're dealing with. They're in the same boat as you, your community, your immigration community. So you can either join the link that we provided, or you can take if you're watching on your computer, take your phone up, get the QR code, and join immediately. I look forward to connecting with you on the Telegram group. And if you would be so kind, share it with your friends. I'm sure you've got a lot of friends that are going through similar situation as you are. And so they could benefit from that as well. In fact, that's going to be my challenge for everyone in the next 30 days, is to see how many people can help us get the word out. And I'll give you more details on that shortly. Next, if you are, raise your hand if this is the first time you are joining our webinar. Raise your hand. Wow. Well, welcome, Sunil. Welcome, Jorge, and welcome, Zoom user, whose name is not. Welcome, guys. Thank you for attending. Anil, thank you for attending the first time. We're thrilled to have you join us. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, or want to get the link so you can invite your friends that could benefit from these types of sessions as well, again, put your phone up, you'll get the QR code with the link. You can just tab that link, and I'm going to try it myself to make sure we're getting the link. And then you can, there we go, there's the link. And you can just share it with your friends immediately. And that would be great. Like I said, I challenge all of you to share, join, engage, so we can have, so 2022 can be our best year for finding solutions for your immigration challenges. And lastly, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Lainey, who is now taken up the role of marketing, is a tremendous taskmaster. She will make sure that I shoot new videos that we can upload on the YouTube channel. She's very persuasive, to say the least. and we're thrilled to have her with us. But as a result, we're going to be having new content, short bits about different questions that we see, common questions that you ask that I'll be explaining, but you won't know that they're uploaded unless you subscribe. So here's what you can do. Again, take your phone up, go to the QR code, and boom, it works. You're on our Challa Law group, and you can join. You can share that link with your friends. And again, we can grow this community to make sure everybody's reaching their immigration objective. So with that, I am going to call our moderator if he is ready, and have him ask some questions on the Q&A. Mr. Challa? Mr. Challa.
I don't believe Shaker has joined yet, so I can start reading some questions for you while he finishes up his class. He teaches class as well, so while he finishes up and logs on with us. So
Perfect.
first question is from an anonymous attendee. Can the green card perm position and the current H-1B position with the same employer be different? The SOC code and the title. I understand the green card job is for the future, but still wanted to confirm. Thanks.
Absolutely, it can. So because it's prospective employment. Hey, there's our moderator. Lainey took the first question because we thought you maybe held up on in.
Yeah, sorry for the delay. So I can,
Right.
she can
So
continue or I can continue.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Let me finish up the question that Lainey posed. So your position doesn't have to be the same because your permanent residence is for prospective employment. And because it was taking so long, they don't expect you to be in the same position. Can't be vastly different, but it should be within the same ballpark. So for example, if you were a software engineer and now you're a team lead, that's a natural transition of that position. So, that would work.
All right, you want me to pick the next one?
Yeah, and I think somebody asked for the sharing of the QR codes, so I will put those up while we're talking.
All right, next question is on, you want me to read the next question?
Yep.
Okay. Next question is from an AA. What are the options if GCEAD extension does not approve even after 180 days of expiry? Straight
That's a great.
goes into out of status?
Your status, you don't go out of status. The EAD is not a document that gives you status. It gives you work authorization. So that's why I was saying it's really important to file as soon as you can, which is 6 months prior to expiration. And then if you have the 180 days, that gives you about 12 months, right? And the average processing time is anywhere between 8 to 12 months. If your EAD expires, unfortunately, you can't continue working. I mean, if your 180 days pass, you cannot continue working. I'm hoping the USCIS will give EADs 240 days, just like they give non-immigrant primary applications. But until then, you cannot work, but it's still in valid status. Now, if you have got an underlying H-1B, one of the things you can think of doing is filing for new, if you are worried that it won't come in and you've had an H-1B issued within the past 6 years, and you haven't utilized all your 6 years, or you may be eligible for an extension pursuant to 104 if your perm and I-140 were pending more than 180 days. Yeah, pending more than 180. Yeah, I think it's 180 days or a year. I'm now, because I've been talking about 180 days with the AD, I'm confused, but I think Ashley's on this webinar, and she can clarify, or Lainey can clarify. So 104 is, so there are two. One, everyone knows that if your I-140 is approved and there's no visa availability, you get 3-year extensions on your H-1B. So even if you're not on an H-1B, if those two factors apply, you can still leverage that 3-year extensions. Even if you change employers, you can leverage that 3-year extensions. But what happens when you filed your 485? You can't really leverage that extension because the visa availability prong of that will not be satisfied. But there is another way in which you can extend your H-1B beyond the 6 years, which is if your perm and I-140 have been pending for 1 year. I think it's 1 year, a 1-year time frame. And so it's either the perm itself or both together have been pending for that time. So if your EAD, you don't see the EAD getting approved anytime soon, you're getting ready to expire on your 180 days, at least you can file the perm pursuant to this premium processing and try to get a work authorized status. Because I hear of a number of people that are in this situation where they've had to stop working, and that can be pretty difficult. So that's what I would do. I'm going to keep this up just for a second, and then I'm going to take it back down.
I think Ashley has posted in the chat, I-485 has to be pending for 180 days before switching employers.
No, that's not, it's Ashley, I was talking about the 104 extension where I think it's the perm and or I-140 have to be pending for at least 1 year. So if it's been pending for 1 year, I think it's either 1 year or 180 days, you can try to leverage the extension, your H-1B extension, for 1 year increments pursuant to that. So do you want to go ahead with the next question, Shaker?
Yeah. I just want to remind viewers to put your questions in the Q&A box. I see a couple of questions in the chat. I'll take it there for now, but just any new questions, just put in the Q&A box, please. Next question is from an AA. My employer is emphasizing to stay on H-1B rather use GCEAD. Would like to know what can be the reasons to get the 485 denied, basically trying to get out of H-1B mess.
Okay, can you say that again?
My employer is emphasizing to stay on H-1B rather than GCEAD. Would like to know what can be the reasons to get the 485 denied, basically trying to get out of H-1B mess.
Well, when you say H-1B mess and the possibility of H-1B denial, I don't understand what the concern is. I do understand not wanting to be on the H-1B, but it's always good to have an underlying non-immigrant visa. For instances like when people are waiting so long for their EAD extensions, it doesn't, you have at least another mechanism so your employment is not interrupted.
Okay. Next question from another AA. Downgraded and got GCEAD. I switched from green card filing employer to employer B, and he did not file 485J, but now got another job. So is it okay to join employer C through employer B did not file I-485J?
He's ported from employer A to employer B and didn't file the I-485J.
Yeah, and then now he's got another job. So he wants to know if he wants to go to the employer C through B, who did not file the 485J.
Yeah, that's okay. But you don't have to wait for the USCIS to ask for the I-485J. Why would, when you port to employer C, I would just make sure that you file the I-485J proactively instead of waiting for an RFE.
Okay. Next one is another AA. Can you use advanced parole and stay on H-1B if with the same employer? In such cases, if my EB-2 becomes currently downgraded to EB-3, can I refile a new I-485?
You can travel on your H-1B with it, or travel on your H-1B visa, or travel on your advanced parole. You can work on your H-1B or work on your EAD as long as you do not work for an employer other than your H-1B employer. Because if you use the EAD to work for an employer other than your H-1B employer, then you have violated your H-1B status. The H-1B is no longer valid. So then you are forced to then only use your EAD. Unless you file an amended petition, if you've got time on your H-1B, or you try to leverage some other mechanism to, periods of H-1B where you were outside the United States, or a number of other things. But that's the answer to your question. You can travel on the AP or travel on your H-1B visa.
I think there's another follow. It says, if my EB-2 becomes currently downgraded to EB-3, can I refile a new I-485?
Yes, you can.
All right. There's questions from the chat. I think folks from YouTube probably can only put a question in the chat. So if that's the case, that's all right. But others, if you're not joining from YouTube, just put your question in the Q&A box, please. So this question is from the chat. Any chance of EB-2 PD getting current in the next year or so? For August 2014 India, my PD is in 2014. Me and my family got EAD based on 485. Now my company is willing to transfer me to India office in a manager role and get me back on L1A and file under EB1. If I go to India, can my family stay on pending AOS and work on 485 EAD?
Yes, because you haven't intended to abandon your status, and you can keep going back and forth. The periods that you're, so the 1-year stay doesn't have to be continuous, but it has to be cumulative. So the periods you're here won't count towards the 1-year stay. But yes.
Okay, I think this person has a follow-up. The downgraded I-140 pending at TSC for over 16 months now. Case is eligible for service request. Should I ask my employer to raise a service request, or should we go for premium processing? Are you seeing approvals for I-140 in regular processing from TSC for downgrades?
Yeah, if it's been pending for as long as it has, I would go ahead and go for premium. Upgrade to premium, so at least the I-140 can get approved.
I think, I don't know, it must be the same person. Jorge Aqueda. Do I qualify to this program if I'm currently living in Mexico City?
What program?
I don't know what program he's talking about, but maybe the follow-up below that. I mean, this, all right, it says, Sunil A. My GC EAD is approved recently, but EB3 priority date is 2014 end. I plan to change my job for better opportunity. My I-140 is approved in October 2014. What should I consider before switching jobs? Should new employer file 485 again, or only supplement J?
So your I-140 is approved, I-45 pending for 180 days. You're working in same or similar employment. Then you just need to fill out an I-45J.
Okay, I think it's the same person. Anonymous used AOS AC21 to switch the job. So question is, when the date becomes current, then do we need to join back GC filing employer to get 485 approved, or just take the 485J from new employer?
Yeah, I mean, he did say that it was pending for 180 days, and okay.
New employer file, I'm not sure if it is pending 180 days. I think this person here, a whole bunch of things. I think I suggest if you can send an email to info@challala.com and clearly outlining what is it that you like for us to address, we'd be glad to send you a response. Right?
Yeah.
Lakshmi, or you want to say something about?
No, I think that way, and you're gonna have, when you write to us, you're gonna have to give us clear dates.
Yeah.
And that will make it easier to respond to your question.
All right. I'm going to go to the
And for
Q&A
those-
box.
Yeah, and for those who may have joined after I showed this before, this is just various mechanisms in which we communicate with everyone. So if you're watching this on your computer, you just have to put your camera up to the QR code. I'm sure we all know how to use QR codes now. And that way you'll get a link. You can use that link to join instantly and share with your friends instantly. So this is our Telegram group, our community that talks about their immigration journey. Here is our weekly webinar. I'd love for you to share this with your friends and folks that are going through the same thing. If you found this helpful, take the camera again, put it up to the QR code, you'll get the link, and then you can share, or you can join and share. And then finally, as I told you, my taskmaster, Lainey, she's got a list of small YouTube videos that she is going to have me create with, quick questions on CSBA, quick questions on portability, EAD extensions, same or similar employment, all the things that you all have been wondering about. Very quick videos, but you won't know about them unless you subscribe. So again, you can put this up, your phone up, get the QR code, share it with your friends, subscribe, comment. We'd love to hear from you. So sorry, Shaker, I saw that a lot of people joined us recently, so I wanted to make sure that they knew about that.
That's perfectly fine. Just want to give a shout out to Mr. Peter Larson out there. Hello, how are you, man? Let's get the next question from the Q&A box. Prem Pathak asks, my PD is in 2014. Me and my family got EAD based on 485. Now my company is willing to transfer me to India office. I think we already answered that. I think he was in chat and now he's answered. So I think we answered that one. That's why if you duplicate, that becomes a little problem. All right, anonymous. So are there any changes to the asylum rules announced recently?
Not that I'm aware of.
Next question from an AA. Did downgrade got GCED? So now can I just keep renewing my GCED until EB3 dates become current and keep changing jobs?
Yeah. I mean, because it's not current yet, so you haven't filed. Did he say that his GC is pending?
Can I just keep renewing my GCED until EB3 dates become current and keep changing jobs? Got GCED, so did downgrade, got GCED.
Yes. Well, you remember, if you're I-1, the only way you can leverage that same adjustment is if your I-140 was approved and your I-45 has been pending for 180 days and you are working in same or similar employment. That's the critical aspect of, changing it. And every time you change employment, that 180 days kicks off again. And so you have to make sure that you're keeping up with that. And I misspoke. I said it was section 104. I think it's section 106. But anyway, I am posting the relevant, I didn't know if, oh. Okay, there we go.
All right, next question.
Mhm.
All right, next one from an AA. I think we answered this one too. Just repeat from the chat.
Okay.
Next one from another AA. Lakshmi Garu, thank you for these webinars. I got my EAD, but my AP not approved. In general, what would be the time frame to approve AP after EAD got approved? Both
Well, that's weird. Aren't they doing, they usually do one card for both. I'm wondering why yours was, are you sure yours was for both and not for, is it just for one? Because it's usually a dual card if you filed it pursuant to an adjustment.
Gentleman or lady, whoever it is, check the card and let us know. You can put their remarks in the chat. We'll pick it up and I'll go to the next question. Vinod Chetty wants to know, sir, I have two questions. First of all, Vinod, I'm not an attorney, so the madam is the attorney. My 485 status shows ready to schedule for interview. Does that mean my documents are verified and I'm on final step? I have H-1B renewal coming up in July 2022. Do you think I will get green card before my renewal date?
Go ahead and apply for a renewal, even though, you know, you think that you're going to have the interview anytime soon, because it's hard to predict when they're going to issue the interview date. Yes, you are in the final stages, but final stages doesn't mean that it's going to happen immediately. So what I would do is go ahead and get an extension as well. That way there's no interruption in your employment.
All right, next question. When AA, I filed 485 but did not submit the date of birth certificate. Submitted affidavits and other mark sheets as DOB proof. Do you see any 485 approvals without DOB certificate?
Yeah, I mean, you can, there's primary evidence, which is a date of birth. There is a ton of secondary evidence. And I believe we've got a webinar on that. And Lainey may share the link on the chat that talks about different types of secondary evidence you can use if you don't have primary evidence. In addition, if your birth certificate is issued long after you were born, they will not consider that because it was not issued simultaneous to your birth. And even in that instance, you may have to use secondary evidence. But we'll have a link for the YouTube video where I discuss evidence for I-485 filings.
Next question from AA. Any chance of EB2 dates moving to 2014?
I wish I could predict that. I am not sure.
Next question from an AA. If my W-2 wage exceeds perm wage, does that show my employer meets ability to pay for a 140?
Ability can be ability to pay can be proven in one of three ways. The net income on the tax returns, net current assets, or if the employer has been paying the employee the prevailing wage, then that can be evidence. And it can be a combination of the three. So let's say the employer, the prevailing wage states that you have to be paid 50,000 a year, just for simplicity's sake. Let's say your employer has been paying you 40,000 a year. So you can prove that the employer has the ability to pay 40,000 of the 50,000 by using the pay stubs and W-2s. The 10,000 deficit from the prevailing wage to what you are being paid can be proven by either the net income or the net current assets, or a combination of the both.
All right. This question from the chat. Manish Agarwal is asking, hi, Lakshmi ma'am, thank you for all you do. I got my GC status changed online to approved after interfiling to EB2 just 3 weeks ago. I wanted to ask if there is a 180-day restriction to leave my employer.
See. Yeah, I mean, every time you switch employers, anytime you interfile, anytime you take any action relating to your pending I-140 and I-485, specifically I-140, you're going to have to wait another 180 days.
All right. Next question from the chat is from V. Lakshmi. My I-485 transferred from NBC to Texas with priority date May 2010, EB3. Can we expect processing from Texas soon? Will USCIS process EB3 till January 2012 EB3 or any retrogress in EB3? Current visa number available for EB3.
Well, it looks like through the end of the year, there were less EB3s that were pending than EB2s. So, you know, we won't know if there's going to be a retrogression until later this year, but does not seem likely. I mean, of course, I don't have the numbers right now for what's been processed overseas as well. So, and there was another question to that, right? It was not only, was it just the retrogression?
Yeah. Corrective action EBT due to EB5. What is a corrective action? No, not this one. My 485 transfer from NBC to Texas, prior date May 2010, EB3. Can we expect processing from Texas soon?
That was the thing. I'm sorry. I was just laughing because you can expect a lot of things from Texas, but processing soon is not one of them. The delays out of Texas are ridiculous. So I think you're just going to have to wait and see. Because of all the 4 processing centers, Texas is by far, by a great measure, they have longer processing times than any of them.
All right. Let's get a next question here on the chat. Sweet Seller is back. I have no idea. VB section D says corrective action in EB2 due to EB5. What is the corrective action? Is that retrogression? Does the legislation allow corrective action on EB2 due to EB5? Please explain.
I'm pulling that up, so because you're reading me just a section of it, and there's probably a lot more in detail. I'm just looking at that right now.
Yeah, while you're looking, I just want to just give an update on the EB5. Folks who are interested in considering EB5, you know, do send me an email to info@challa.com. The EB5 Regional Center program is still under suspension, but the EB5 Direct program is on. It's been on. So I have a project that I was pretty successful in getting a lot of investors to invest in the project. Greensboro, North Carolina has a Western Hotel and Conference Center. And so I'll be glad to talk to you guys. So send me an email, info@challalaw.com. And you may want to consider, if you're considering it, you may want to make the decision fast, because there's likelihood that in about 3 weeks or second week of March, around that time, there's going to be some new bill that Congress may consider, renewing, and it may increase the investment amount. So we're not sure. There's a lot of speculation. But what I know for sure is right now, it's $500,000. So let me know. Be glad to talk.
That's right. And they signed a joint measure. It was supposed to originally be mid-February when they would have to consider the spending bill. So now that's been postponed till March. So you have some additional time. Not sure when, but I think it's early March. So you've got till then that you're able to benefit from the 500,000. So to go back to the question of Mr. Seller.
Sweet,
So the
sweet seller.
Sweet Seller, sorry, Sweet Seller. What it states on the visa bulletin, it's talking about the expiration of fifth preference regional center visa categories, because remember, there's a suspension. So they said if there is legislative action extending this category for March, the final action dates would immediately become current for March for all countries except China, mainland-born, which would be subject to the November 22, 2015 final action date. And then it goes on to say that in addition, if sufficient demand materializes in the EB fifth preference category, if sufficient demand materializes in EB fifth preference category, corrective action may be taken in India employment-based second preference, which would have utilized any otherwise unused numbers from EB5. So yes, it all depends on, because the utilization is per country, and then it's broken up per category. And just like unused numbers from EB2 get applied to EB3, unused numbers from fifth preference would get applied to EB2. So what they're saying is, if Congress does extend the regional center program in March, then if there is sufficient demand in the EB5 fifth preference category, that may impact EB2. It doesn't say it will, it just says it may.
All right, thank you. I just want to not correct, but just give you the exact date where the bill for the, Congress to consider, approving or renewing the regional center program. Our friend, Mr. Daniel Robinson from Durham, North Carolina is online, and he said March 11th. Thank you,
And
Mr. Robinson.
Just so you know, Daniel, when I said I wasn't sure of the correct date, I kind of knew you were listening, and I kind of knew that you would post it. So that was really a kind of,
Get you to get on the
signal to you that you understood. So thank you.
All right. So please don't put any more questions. We have an international call to make in the next 5 minutes. So, but whatever questions we have, we'll answer. So, Lainey, if you could just send an email to the person and say we'll be there online 1:05. So we'll take care of the rest of the questions. And apologize if we can't answer any questions of yours. Please send us an email to info@challalaw.com. All right. There's a second question from the EB from Sweet Seller. If SSN is applied with I-765, how does it get delivered? A mail after receiving EAD or GC? Any additional action needed from the applicant apart from filing I-765 and indicating SSN?
Right. And I think there's some slight change to that. Sweet Seller, if you could send us an email at info@challalaw.com. I distinctly remember Ashley telling me something about the SSN number and and changes with the application. So we can get that information to you.
All right, question from the box, Q&A. Filed downgrade and change from employer A to B after 180 days. Now my EB2 date is correct. Can employer B initiate the interfile now?
He says that it's been 180 days. He's now
Yeah,
with employer B. Can they initiate the
interfile.
interfiling? There have been some changes in the interfiling rules, and I do believe that there's specific parameters where you have to interfile. I think we've got an article on that. If Lainey can put the article up, or if you email us, we'll make sure we send it to you. If you've changed employers, remember that any action you take is you can't do for 180 days. I'm not distinctly sure off the top of my head if that means the interfiling as well. So I know that if you interfile, you can't change employers for 180 days. But I think there may be something in the new guidance that relates to that. So either we'll post it here or you email us and we'll send you the memo.
All right, this question from the chat. I abandoned my pending I-485. How can I come back to US?
So did you not have two things? When you say abandoned, is it because you didn't have either a valid H or L when you departed? Or was it that you didn't have a valid H or L and you departed before your AP was issued?
But send us the answer, so we'll be glad to, respond. Next question, the person who was the combo card issues that got one thing approved, the other one, he says, I got checked my card. It's not a combo card. I applied for EAD AP on the same day. What is the option I have to reach out to USCIS?
We've got a webinar where we talk about the different ways you can reach out to the USCIS. Everyone thinks it's just Emma, but there are many different ways. And so we'll post the webinar where we give you clear instructions, not only the various mechanisms you can reach out to the USCIS, trying to call action to something that they've done, but what you need to have with you when you make those calls. What are some tips to try to get a successful outcome from using those mechanisms? So there it is, boom, navigating the USCIS contact center. So that should help you in resolving your issue.
Yeah, there's something in the chat. You may want to look at that link. Next one from AA, how to check if I-140 is new or amendment? Can we know this from receipt notice?
No, but if you get a copy of your I-140 that was filed, you should know whether, because they have to check off the box. There are different boxes that are checked off pursuant to whether it was a new I-140 or it was an amended I-140.
All right. This next question, I think now he's put it here. The H-1B visa is only for immigrants living in the US, or can I get the H-1B if I live in Mexico City?
Well, if it's a first time getting an H-1B, this is a good question to ask, because the H-1B cap season is coming up, and it doesn't matter what country you're from. You don't have to be in the United States when you file a H-1B cap. So when it says H-1B cap, that means you're subject to the 85,000 cap that it has been set by Congress for issuance of H-1B visas. H-1B visas are issued per fiscal year. USCIS their fiscal years from October to October. You can only file an H-1B 6 months in advance of the start date. That's why April 1st, April Fool's Day, becomes a time frame in which you can file for an H-1B subject to the cap. And so they have a pre-registration, which starts on March 16th. And if you were selected from the pre-registration, then you would file your petition shortly thereafter. And I think earlier I saw someone with a question about going from an H-1B cap. You can always go from an H-1B cap to a cap exempt. That's not a problem. But if you're trying to go from an H-1B cap exempt to an H-1B cap, there are two things that I think are useful for you. Number one, while you're on the H-1B cap exempt, most people don't know this, but you can do a concurrent cap subject employment that won't be subject to the cap, number one. Number two, if you want to go from cap exempt to cap, then you're going to have to file within the quota timeframe, which is April 1st. So you have to register and file now. You'd be subject to the cap. I think you got to wrap it up, buddy.
Well, a couple of questions. Where is the processing location for Virginia residents?
The USCIS office, there's one located in Northern Virginia, one located in Norfolk. It depends on where you are physically located. That dictates where you would be subject. You can go online and you can put in your address and it will tell you which office, local office you'd be subject to. Because it doesn't, some of it's not intuitive. There's some people that I would think would be subject to one office just because of their proximity, but they're subject to the other.
All right, two more questions, then we got to close it. This one, I overstayed by more than a year. If I get a U visa, work permit, can I travel abroad and come back without issues?
You know, there's been a lot of discussion on that, whether you're a DACA, whether you're someone who has otherwise not maintained status. And even though you get, a travel permit, whether you can travel, I wouldn't take the risk, even though they say it's okay, until there's some clear guidance by the USCIS saying that they will not take any action if you travel and try to return.
All right, last question, and as usual, please accept our apologies if we didn't answer your question. Send us an email, info@challa.com. Be glad to send you a response. Last question, Teja. I got family-based green card EAD. I'm on H-1B currently. Do I need to maintain my H-1B status or can I use GCAD? How this thing works?
Yeah, you can. But if I were you, I always tell people this. I'd like to have an underlying non-immigrant classification, because whether the USCIS makes a mistake or whether there's some deficiency in your adjustment application, it can get denied. You can refile it, but at least you won't have any interruption in your employment if you've got two mechanisms in which you can have an employment verified status. And that's a wrap for
All
today.
right, that's about all.
Join me next week where we will talk about, because as we get into H-1B season, H-1Bs, maybe we'll have some better data related to processing times and so forth. And of course, we'll always answer your questions. I hope you'll join us on our social media platforms and connect with us that way. I love connecting with all of you, whether through these webinars or through those platforms. Share it with your friends. If you enjoyed these, if you think my answers to your questions were helpful, our information was helpful, the one thing I ask is that you spread the word. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you again, Shaker. Thank you for my wonderful team for putting this together. You all are great, and look forward to seeing you all next week.
All right. Have a good week.